Good morning, everyone. Today, I will discuss with you the important aspects, or what we say the critical features of the poem, the rhyme of the ancient mariner. So, I have already discussed the poem with you, the introductory aspects. Today, let us discuss the critical aspects of the poem. This poem is regarded as a masterpiece in English poetry. Not just by the poets of what we say the 18th century. I was forgetting the century, the 18th century, but otherwise also this poem has a significant place that it has earned for itself. Earlier, it received a cold reception. People did not like it much, but then what happened? It has, with the times, as people read it, it was known for its excellence, and it has come to be known as the masterpiece, one of the masterpiece, not one, but a masterpiece written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And there is a significant critic, and I would like to read his comment to you. He says that this weird ballet abounds in those very qualities in which Coleridge's poetry, with all its merits, is conspicuously deficient, while on the other hand it is wholly free from the faults with which he is most frequently and justly chargeable. So what he says is that um, even though there are other poems also he has written, there must be some lacking points in those, but nothing lacks in this particular poem. It is no faults are there as such. Okay, so that is why this is known as the regarded as a masterpiece by Coleridge. Now, next aspect is that the rhyme of the ancient mariners is a high watermark of Coleridge's excellence as a poet. He has proved himself to be a master of supernaturalism. Dexterous कौन होता है? Expert. Supernaturalism, then treatment of imagery, the use of meter, and simplicity. And what are these all? These all are the aspects or the features of romantic poetry. Hope you know this by now, right? In his poem, what we see, the romantic poetry, there is in Coleridge's poetry, let me say, there is dexterous treatment of supernatural, vivid and sensuous nature imagery, smooth flow of musical meter, simplicity, and dramatic appropriateness of language, and above all, its truth to human sentiment and its profound ethical and spiritual implication. Now, next is the blending of the natural and the supernatural, sorry. Now, to achieve this, what Coleridge did, to achieve this, he undertakes what we call, uh, let me just read in his own words. He says, to achieve this was difficult for me, but I had undertaken to transfer from my own inward nature a human interest and sentence of truth, sufficient to procure for shadows of imagination that willing suspension of disbelief for the moment which constitutes poetic faith. It was a difficult task, but he was successful in doing it. So, you know what he says, that he has been successful in blending the natural and the supernatural. Whether we talk of the ancient mariner or we talk of Kubla Khan, we can see how nicely he has blended by explaining the nature. Similarly, in the ancient mariner, he very beautifully explains to us the sea, how it is calm, and then how it becomes how the weather changes on the sea and the various facets of the sea, and even the bird, obviously bird too is part of the nature, right? So very beautifully and very adroitly or dexterously, uh, Coleridge has been successful in blending the natural with the supernatural. I hope that must be clear to you. And next are the elements of a ballet. And what happens here? Um, Ballet, of course, it's a folk ballet. It is telling us a story, right? It was difficult for the poet to keep his own thought within the circle of mariner's mind, and the mariner's thought within the circle of a child's mind. Like the old ballets, the poet deal with what? Elementary feeling of humanity. Now see, this is very important, very very important. ये एक aspect है, दूसरा aspect moral आ जाता है, ठीक है? The moral aspect of the tale. And then he used the traditional tricks of ballet, like the ballet meter, the rhyme, alliteration. Alliteration होता है repetition of same vowel or consonant sounds, repetition of phrases, lines, archasms जो word अब हम use नहीं करते हैं, and noble simplicity of language, vigor and energy for narration. And in this way, he is successful in giving the Rime of the Ancient Mariner the touch of a old folk ballet. You can get an exclusive question on this also, right? Now ये जो ये aspect आया है ना, this humanity aspect, this is very very significant, because the poet over here, he talks of the यूनिवर्सल लव. ये मैंने पहले भी आपको बताया जब मैं स्टोरी पोएम डिस्कस किया. यूनिवर्सल लव एंड sympathy, right? What happened here? Not element of ballet, but humanitarian की बात हम उससे कर रहे हैं. Over here, this sympathy and love was all of a sudden denied by the humans towards the nature. Okay, and there is this very significant critic, Tuford Brooke. He says the poem is a revelation made by Coleridge of what he believed to be always the case in the spiritual world. ये बात आ गई यहाँ पे, that the world is on the side of pity and love, and men who violate these are punished by hardness of heart. जैसे कि एंशियंट मैरिनर को पनिशमेंट मिली. They cannot pray, they cannot be wise, they cannot bless the living of the land, sea, and sky. Nature for them is dead, and if there be paths bound up with nature, those are their enemies. So humans themselves became the enemy of nature. And Coleridge imagines the lonesome spirit of South Pole who loved the albatross and his fellow demons, the invisible inhabitants of the elements and great ocean that always looks at the moon and the sun, who act with the polar spirit. Death and life in death. What are they? They are spiritual powers which execute the sanctions of law of pity. So, pity dikhai? No. The poet, let us say the mariner, did not show pity towards the towards nature, towards the bird. And the poem is magnificent plea for universal love and sympathy. The mariner is relieved of his soul's agony only when he blesses the slimy creatures. Then and then only a prayer gushed from his heart. And what he said, ये मैंने पहले भी आपको सुनाई थी. He prayeth best who loveth best all things both great and small, for the dear God who loveth us he made and loveth all. Please keep this in mind. These lines are significant. He prayeth best who loveth best. You will be quoting them in your answers. All things both great and small, for the dear God who loveth us he made and loveth all. So what is important is that we have to understand the universal existence, universal love and sympathy. You cannot ignore this aspect, and Mariner suffered because he denied and ignored this aspect. Okay. So the fifth aspect is medievalism. The poem has a medieval background. There is the interest that Coleridge shows in the has shown in the Middle Ages is yet another feature of what we call the romantic poetry, right? Or romantic characteristics. The Middle Ages were a period of superstition, piety, love, chivalry. And in this particular poem, for the first time, these elements, the first two elements of what? Superstition and piety has been used by Coleridge. The superstition is considered as a supernatural element over here, right? And the poem, it carries us to a very remote period of time, a very old period of time. Okay, that is these are the medieval aspects of the poem. Then nature again, there are many pictures in the poem showing Coleridge's interest in nature. Love for nature is one of the outstanding qualities of romantic poetry. Every phase of seascape, landscape, cloudscape is touched upon in the poem. The sun shining brightly at the outset, the mist and iceberg surrounding the ship, then the snakes moving in water. So these are some beautiful and richly colored nature pictures that are given in the poem, and they again have a what we call this aspect, romantic aspect, right? Then next is your melodious movement. Then this again is an aspect of romantic poetry. The poem is romantic because of its melody and music. Because of melody and music. Coleridge appears to be a keen lover of sweet and musical sounds. This we have already read earlier also, that alliteration, repetition of same sounds, and rhymes and onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia क्या होता है? When you are recognizing an object with its voice. Say for example, I say hiss, that means snake. I say hum, that means bees, humming of bees. Okay, so these are certain what should I say, features of literary figures of poetry which Coleridge has made use of in his poem. So the basic appeal which this poem gets is from its imagination, right? And the imaginative quality of this particular poem includes all these aspects from here till here, right? They all form the imaginative aspects, and also these are one of the features of romantic poetry, right? There are two another aspects that have been attributed to ballet, we have discussed, yes. Now we come to allegory. Allegory is when a story is giving you a lesson, a moral lesson, okay, in a guised manner, right? If we see for definition, an allegory has been defined as a narrative description of a subject matter guise of another, suggestively subject matter. Okay, so through the story of killing of the innocent albatross, uh, Coleridge is telling us about this aspect of human lives, that we first commit a crime, then we deal with its guilt, and then we go through a process of regeneration. And this has been showed through various parts of the poem. So first we are shown the guilt, and then we are shown from first to sixth part the regeneration, and finally we are shown the redemption in the last part of the poem. So The Ancient Mariner is a simple allegory of guilt. It is divided into 7 parts, beginning with commission of guilt, and the conclusion deals with uh, redemption. At the end of part 1, the mariner shoots the albatross. So that is his crime that he has committed. And then he keeps dealing with the guilt, and he keeps working on it, right? And it is only towards the last half that the Ancient Mariner turns out to be, let us say, the poem turns out to be a myth of guilt and redemption. Coleridge introduces a new dimension. How? What he does, the myth of crime and punishment provides a structure of supernatural event. देखो, हम इतनी सारी चीज़ें डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, एंड इवेंचुअली all these 9 or 8 points which I'm discussing with you, they will be you just have to move one upside down, two upside down, or three here and there, इधर उधर इन टॉपिक्स को प्लेस करके आपके सारे के सारे क्वेश्चंस जो कोलरिज या एंशियंट मैरिनर के बनते हैं वो डील हो जाएंगे. सो डू लिसन टू दिस वेरी केयरफुली, दी ऑल दीज ट्यूटोरियल्स दैट आई एम शेयरिंग. The myth provides a structure of supernatural event which rise from it. The shadow cast by mariner's crime adds by contrast to the brilliance of unearthly world. The mariner's tale is a story of voyage into the interior, not only into the unfathomable depths of the sources of human action to be discerned in the unpremeditated shooting of albatross that cause him suffering and spontaneous blessing of water snakes. Now you see, without any reason, for no reason, he kills her. Whereas everybody was saying that she has come like a what? A good omen, a good person. Not a good person, but a good omen for all of us. Because what happened? Albatross ke aane se kya hua? The bad weather suddenly changed into a pleasant weather on the sea. But then, because the poet had to go through this theme, in this manner, he has presented the Ancient Mariner as an allegory. So I hope you'll be able to connect to this. Now, death and life and death. So these are figures that have been used in the poem, and they are very, very significant. Death represents what? The grim looking ghastly skeleton or nightmare, जो कि हमने different parts में पढ़े. ठीक है? After the killing of the albatross, these figures are there. And life and death is red lips, golden locks, leprous skin, the sea snakes and all that are there. So death and life and death are playing a game, and if death wins, she takes away the whole crew. So they had already become skeletons. And if life in death wins, the whole crew is saved. So eventually, this has a great significance of death and life and death. They are two instruments of punishment. Remember that. They are what? They are instruments of punishment in the hands of God. There is a law of pity prevailing on earth. The world is on the side of pity and love, and the men who violate these laws are punished by how they are punished? They are punished by hardness of heart. Why he's punished? For violating laws. VI. Violating laws. They cannot pray and they cannot bless any creature of the world. All things that God has are beloved to Him. God loves those who love their fellow men and fellow creatures. Now, the guardian spirit, जो guardian spirit था, they began to avenge the albatross. It sent death and life in death to punish the sailors. So, who had sent death and life in death? The guardian spirit. Guardian spirit. A skeleton ship approached them carrying two figures. One was grim looking, ghastly skeleton, and the other was life in death, red, which was red lips, leprous skin. She represents the lifelong torture that a sinful man endures on account of pinpricks of his conscience. और ये किसकी situation थी? Mariner की. Life and death curdles one's blood by striking terror into the heart of man. The two ghastly crew were placing a dice game to determine who would win the mariner. So mariner को क्या death मिलेगी या mariner को life and death मिलेगी. So they were playing this game. Life and death won, whereas death fell upon sailors. So जो death थी, the sailors died, and the mariner, he had to face the brunt of the crime that he had committed. ओके सो आई होप अब आपको क्लियर हुआ होगा कि लाइफ, ये जो दो फिगर्स का मेंशन है पोएम में, लाइफ एंड डेथ एंड लाइफ इन डेथ का क्या इम्पोर्टेंस है. So these are the important aspects on which you will be studying for this particular poem. Now again, for the questions, as a romantic poem, then use of supernaturalism, a summary, a critical summary, a critical appreciation, and the poem as a ballet. And last, do prepare allegory or life in death and death for short answers. I will be sharing the notes with you. Okay. In case of doubt, I'm always there. Do let me know. Thank you so much.